Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Well, I've been busy. Now, there's still quite a bit of work to do to this. It's not perfect. There's a couple waves and spots, a couple shadows, but all the big stuff is done. All the welding is done. The rust is gone. My curves are where they need to be. They need to be smoothed out a little bit. You can see a little bit here. And there's an odd shadow here because of my primer. I changed cans right in the middle, and that bottom half made that weird little mark there, which makes it hard to see the actual contour. So I need to get that all one color. But my plan is all this is going to get aligned. Like all these doors just on here quick. My gaps aren't good. They're sticking out. I put it on, eyeballed it real fast, just so everything closed and nothing touched, nothing pinched, so it wasn't doing any damage. Just to make sure everything aligned. Had the parts everywhere I need to go and get on there. And now that I have it, the next step will be to aligning the doors, the rear deck lid, getting the hinges aligned here on the hood. Everything good, so it's close as it can be, so that when it's time to take this apart for paint, it's not all that messing around to try to get it back together, because the longer it takes me adjusting things, the more chance there is of bumping it and dinging the paint. So I want to get it so that all the hinge mounts on the doors themselves stay permanent, and all I'm doing is removing the 2 points off the body so I can take the door off one piece, paint it all, and get it back on. But there is a lot more finishing body work to do on top of that. A lot of, like I said, little dings here and there, little waves I got to get out. But I got to get it all together. It'll all be blocked out by hand. I finally got this wheel well done, and it turned out pretty darn good, I tell you. The same with that front fender. I'm finally happy with it. The rear trunk, she looks awesome. She is a perfect straight line across the back, doing well. But I'll admit, it's been a long time doing this painting and priming, so I'm moving on to something else for a little bit here. I've been doing some cleaning in the shop, but it's now time to address the transmission. Now, for those of you who follow along, just a refresher, this is the original 3-speed push-button transmission out of the 64. Now, it is automatic with kickdown, has an external parking brake. There's no actual park in the transmission itself. It's a separate lever, which is this one here. And it runs this mechanism, which is attached to a little tail lock underneath the transmission, and it locks the tail end of the tranny from turning. There's not an actual park inside here. So in the car, when you were to the stop, you'd hit the neutral button, and then you'd pull the lever to lock it into park. But with all the work I'm doing, it'd be a shame just to throw this thing back in the car the way it is, not knowing the condition or anything. So 2 things are happening. 3 things are happening, actually. I'm going to pull a torque converter out of it and get it drained out. There's a drain plug here. Turn it to the bottom, drain out the best I can, pull it off. Try not to make a mess of my floor. And I'm going to send the torque converter off to get tested to make sure everything's fine there. Then I got a transmission kit that's going to go in here. I'm going to rebuild the transmission, new clutches, seals, springs, stuff like that. And then once I get the verdict back on my torque converter, to find out what kind of pressure this thing's putting out and how it's working, then I'm going to get a shift kit I'm going to add to this. Now, this transmission is the A727. They use this on everything. Mopar uses it in a lot of stuff. They even put these in the first gen Cummins. And they can handle about 600 horsepower. So far enough. It's definitely enough for what I'm building here and the engine I got going there. So I don't have to worry about that. So 600 is more than enough for this build. But I just want to freshen it up, make sure everything's good, check the bands out on it, make sure all the brake bands are good, make sure all the seals are good, because it'd be a shame to throw this whole thing together and either have it not work or just puke its guts out the bottom. That is just this cover starter, or the starter cover. That just covers up the hole for the starter in there. Get that out of the way so we can get the converter to pass by. This is the flex plate. Now this is backwards. This would go around the other way, and these bolts would bolt to the back of the crank on the engine, and then they would attach with just these 4 bolts to the converter through this flex plate, and that's the solid connection between engine and transmission. So I'm just going to get the last of these pulled out, throw this aside, spin this around. Got a bucket here. Hopefully we can drain it out without making too much of a mess. Got that draining. Just a little NPT plug. Gonna let that drain for a while, make sure not everything is out of there, but just make it so it's a little less mess. Be nice to get it lower than half of the torque converter, so when I pull it out of the transmission and it pulls it away from that input seal, that doesn't just puke out everywhere on my floor. I really don't want to get a lot out of the floor. Be nice to keep it clean, and hopefully we'll have success. So it's all drained out. Had quite a bit of fluid in here. I thought there was only going to be like maybe a couple quarts, a couple liters, but it filled my first jug no problem. So I had to move over to the funnel in the 5-gallon bucket. But got it all drained, and I gave this thing a little tug, and she's it was, I thought it was, there it is there. It's gonna come off real quick and easy. So I'll give her a pull out of here. We'll see what it looks like in behind it. Just move my camera back a little bit there, make some room. And yeah, it moves nice and easy. There we go. Man, it's a shame to pull this thing apart. Like, there's not a drip of oil on this. It's dry as a bone here, no dust, no nothing. Looks like that seal was put in yesterday. But it'd be a shame to throw this whole thing together, put her on the back of that engine, put her in the car, and find out that inside something is gone because it's been sitting here for 40 years. Could be an internal leak on a seal or something. Or even though these seals look good, they could be dried out so that when we first flash this up and some heat and pressure builds in her, she just spits everything out. But clean this up a little bit, and we'll come back to her. Got my table rolled out into the middle just so I can work a little bit all around this. These casters on the bottom of my big welding table, that's the best thing I've ever done to a bench. Every single thing in here I have is on wheels. Every cabinet, my workbench, all the shelving, all the big shelving stuff, it's all on wheels, even the saws and stuff. The best way to have it. These though, these things are the cat's ass. Now I think it went over these back a little ways when I put these on, but this is like an over centering cam. So when you're working on your workbench, these levers are up and the legs are solid on the floor, so you can bang on it, pound on it, put whatever weight you want on there. And then when you're ready to move it, you just step down on these levers and it lifts the feet up to 3/4 inches off the ground. And you can roll it around. And it's good for, they say it's good for 600 pounds. Well, my table got a 1/2 inch deck plate on it, 1/2 inch bridging, and this 4-inch drill pipe. I think my table itself is around 500 pounds or more. And I got the transmission on it, but they lifted up no problem and rolled just smooth as glass. But got things cleaned up, put aside. There's some numbers on here. I called the place that I'm going to get them to check it out. Gave them torque converter numbers, also my pump number, so they know what pump is in here. And hopefully I get a call back. They're going to quote me on what it would cost to send that off to get it tested, and then also what it would cost for a new one. If they're close, you know what? Maybe just buy a new one. You know, they can't be anything fancy. They're only a 3-speed transmission, and it's running a car, so it's not like I need like huge stall speeds or anything like that. Just want this thing to glide nicely. But now they're out in the middle of the floor, there's something I've been dying to know for quite a while. What's this thing look like inside? So we're gonna take off the dipstick tube, get this thing situated around, get some rags stuff out here to sop up the mess, because there's still probably a lot of fluid in this thing. Try to drain some more out. I'm going to pull that transmission pan out of that thing, pull off the filter, and see what we're working with. There we go. Got the main oil drained out, and I just kind of rubbed it off into that pan down there. A little splash shield, of course. And the last little bit is just dripping out. Getting underneath here, it's actually not bad of shape at all. Pan's good shape, no real rust or anything. It's a little bit oily, so probably a little bit of an oil pan leak, which I'm sure saved it. And then here is the park brake underneath. That's the mechanism there that locks into this thing. There's a little, right there, there's a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's a roll pin that goes through there. And that roll pin is what fits right inside here, right inside this thing. And then when you push the lever and pull the lever, of course, it disengages the park. But I'm going to scrape off some mud and grease that's in here and take this pan off. I got it all cleaned up. Pretty good. All these bolts, they're definitely the recommended 12 to 15 foot-pounds. They come out real nice. No rust at all. Nice and clean and black in there. I'm really impressed at how well everything has come apart on this engine, the engine over there, and this transmission. Like, I am surprised. I got bolts on my 08 Dodge that are twice as hard to get out as these ones on the 64. That it's a good possibility this is original. This might even be the original filter in here. Only, what does this have? This had 97, I think it was 97,000 miles on the speedometer, and it does work. So this might be the original transmission filter when we pull this apart. There we go. A little bit of sludge in there. Not too bad looking though. Not too bad for something that's been sitting for 40 years. Now we can get right in here and see how she's doing. And I tell you, it is absolutely pristine inside this transmission. There's no soot, no sludge, nothing. All the metal parts here, like, of course there's aluminum, but all the metal parts, there is not a speck of rust or anything on anything in here. Solenoids, they look good. Again, seals could be dry though. That looks awesome. But what I'm really interested in is I'm going to pull the filter here, take these screws out, and I want to see what it looks like on the other side of that to see the difference. There we go. Thing looks brand new in there. Brand new. That is awesome. Oops. There is not a flake. Well, I shouldn't say that. Two hands. I don't know if you can even see them. I could count the pieces of shiny flake that I see on here. There's basically nothing. This thing is in excellent shape. Couldn't be any better. This is probably what the best case scenario of this thing. It is so clean. It is rust-free, pit-free. Doesn't look like any water in there. No water came out of this thing when I drained it. So I think I lucked out. Just pulled off the dry shaft flange. And yeah, appears that no water has made it past the end of the seal anyway, so that's good. Easy to get off. Now we're going to move into the tail end of this tranny. Again, all the schematics I found on this is showing a inspection plate right here, which mine does not have, for the snap ring that holds the tail section onto the shaft. There's a bearing that it rides on in here. So I'm going to go with the fact that this one's a little bit older, doesn't have it. And once I take off these bolts, hopefully I can push it out. Top bearing here will go down, and this one will stay as well. I can remove that, which is a shaft left sticking out. So there's 6 bolts all together on the end of this tail by the looks of it. 5 around the outside, and one long one that goes all the way through here. So that's all the moat. And another thing, as I go, I'm being very mindful that I'm not knocking dirt off and everything down into the actual body of the transmission. Yeah, she's on there pretty solid. Give her some more love tap and double check the top here. I don't think there's a snap ring at the top of that tail. We'll take a quick look. So I had to jump on Google there a bit, but that is it. There she is. She's coming right off. There we go. You can see the park brake in here better now that it's out. There's a little lead right here. You can see how that moves in. And it locks into this gear here. And that's be all the spots the whole way around, just so you're never that far away from a park spot. Even if it lands on one, as soon as you let your foot off the brake, clunk, it'll lock in to either side. And that's what locks her up. So, fairly clean in there. That's good. Now they're going to move on, pull off the whole servo mechanism here, or the, shouldn't say the servo mechanism, I don't know what this is. Those are the servos there. Guess that's the valve body. All right, pulling the valve body off. Got 3 bolts up top, 3 bolts on the bottom, and 4 over here between the servos. They're not on super tight. Get all these coming off. Let's see if we can get this out. Oh, and we got oil pouring. Situate my bucket here. All right, there's 1 bolt here to go. Sorry for the video format if you are watching YouTube. I'm going between YouTube and TikTok making this video, but I feel this is something I'm only going to do once. So this is how she's going. I'm getting hung up on the kickdown lever that's protruding through the top of the transmission. For some reason, it ain't coming through. There's a little seal there, but for some reason it won't pull through the seal. Okay, it must be a little dirt on there or something. Have to clean that up. All right, actually it's a little nut down in here. And even though everything seems loose, the actual shifting plunger part that's in here is just a hair too much to fit through. So I took the nut off, and there we go. Servo, the valve body assembly is out. Whoop. And we're gonna have to let that drain for a bit. There we are, getting a good look at the inside of this transmission. She's clean. Now definitely there's a little sludge that's been built up out of that oil, but for the most part, all the things I gotta look for, like clutch drums being turned blue or discolored from overheating and burning, everything's looking good there. Still, no water coming out yet. Now of course over here, we have the valve body out. Definitely no rust in your pitting. There is a good amount of sludge on the top. A lot of stuff is settled out, and I'd say probably most of that is from it just being sitting in the oil for so long. Every little bit of I don't know what you call it, crud, sediment, anything that's in that oil is just slowly has settled out over the last 40 years. Most of it in the pan, but of course any top surface is going to get it because everything underneath is perfectly clean. So, next thing I think is we got to pull the pump out. So I got to tip this down, get the bolts out from underneath there, and get that pump yanked out of it. All right. I use the old impact with a quick zap just to get these all loosened off. They're coming out pretty easy. So I'll move over to the 1/4 inch drive stuff, and I'll throw a bit on the end of a screwdriver. Just make it a lot easier. And just like everything I'm going through, I'm keeping my bolts where they should be. So far, everything's been the same size, but I'm sure somewhere along the line here, there's going to be different size bolts in different spots. Just keep an eye on that to make sure everything is the same. Some kind of, I don't know what I got here, some kind of a spacer or a baffle cover or something. Not really sure what that's for, but it was at the top of the transmission, and there is actually, it must be a baffle. There's a little port right here. I can see a hole going through. So that goes right at the top. There's even an index there, and that's good to know. So when I'm putting this pump back together, I can see the index to where that port goes through. So keep taking these out, and we'll come back. All right, so with all those bolts out, and they are all the same size, have to pull that pump out. And you gotta use a slide hammer to get in there. But I don't have the proper tips for this. What we have is 2 opposing holes are threaded on the pump side. So you can put a bolt in there, attach it to your slide hammer, and get them coming out. So the bolt is the easy part to come by, which just threads in these holes here. But I don't have anything to attach it. So turn it over to the welder here for a bit. Just gonna use a little piece of cardboard here to keep some sparks away. And I got a nut. I'm just gonna weld those 2 together. Then I can attach it to the end of my slide hammer and give some tugs on that pump. All right. She's pretty nasty looking. I didn't clean the steel at all, and also never even thought about it. All the transmission fluid I have in my hands, and I was playing around with that bolt and that nut and got it all gooey. But it should do the trick. This shouldn't be in there that tight. There we go. That popped it out a little on that side. Make sure we get a few threads in there so you don't damage it. And we're just going to go back and forth here. Looks like it's coming out nice. Yeah, no problem at all. Would help if my bolt was a little straighter. What you gonna do though? What you gonna do? Oh, one more on the other side. Actually, that might be it. Yeah, that's it. All right, so we're gonna get ready to pull the first clutch drum out and all the clutches. On this side of the transmission, right down here, there's an adjustment screw that you can see coming through that tensions the band to the outside of the clutch drum. So I've got that loosened right off. So we can pull out the spacers. So one on that side. And we get the little wedge one on the other that goes up against the tensioner. There you go. Floating in there right nice. Should be able to pull that out the other side now. There's that band there. Just slid right out. No issue at all. It's in good shape. No color change on it. And the lining looks like it's good too. And once we get the drum out, we'll be able to get a better look inside to see if it's scored or anything. There we are. First clutch drum out. There we go. Number 2. Slides right out. Okay, snap ring is out. And she's falling apart. So we got the first planetary out here. That's your first set of planetary drives there. And we should be able to get the next set. And there we are. That's them there to the back of the clutch drum, which the clutches are on that other shaft that we already pulled out. So we're still looking good. Things are clean inside. Nice and shiny, no corrosion, no rusting or pitting on anything. Looking good, looking really good. I've been kind of flying through this. It's been coming apart a lot faster than I thought. But all my clutch drums are great. No colors in them. They don't have any big check marks on them for the bands drag. You can see the main one here. Nice and shiny right around. Of course this one as well too. So at least I know they haven't been burnt. That's the good thing. But there is a lot going on in here. I'm a little out of my comfort zone. Take it easy on the comments. I'm sure there's something I'm doing wrong. Probably a lot that I'm doing wrong. But I'm keeping track of everything's coming apart. Hopefully it'll all go back together the same way. And I'm being as careful as I can. Not getting rammy. Haven't had to beat on anything yet. The hardest part was pulling that tail end of that transmission off. So, right. Well, next, I guess it's going to be getting this rear shaft off. I think this is a secondary pump in here. I'm not 100% sure. But I think there's a secondary pump here. There's definitely some oil galleys going down there. And something happening in here. Now, whatever that is, some typical pump or actuator or something. So, yeah. Let's move on. Kind of jumped ahead on this last band and drum. Just had to get the keyway out for the last servo. It'll be the back servo. A little bit of a bugger to get in there. It's hard to get that out. But took out the spacer, which allowed me to take all the slack off the drum as well. And I don't know if these are actually marked by these lines that are on here, but I have been keeping track of which ones are on which side so that I'm not going backwards in there. So, another part out, throw it aside, and now we're really into something crazy going on in there. Oh. There we go. Tail end of transmission shaft out. Little index ball right there. Gotta really watch for. Looks good. Looks real good. Just move it into this rear housing here. Those are six bolts, looks like, altogether. And they are all the same length as well too, so that makes it nice and easy. Not sure what this part does. It does have oil fill, or sorry about that. Oil tubes, I guess you call them. So it is feeding oil to this back part for some reason. And I see there's a little check valve in there. There you go. Oh, yeah, and that is the pump. That is the pump. All right, so we are going to pull the first servo apart. I'm just using a socket just to give it a nice little base down there because all my clamps, I don't have the little cups on the end anymore. So that'll just give it a little bit of extra surface area for it to touch, just so it's not putting so much force in one little area. Gonna clamp this down, press the spring. I should be able to get in here, a screwdriver, and pop a little clip out. It comes. There you go, clip out. Release the pressure on this, and that servo should come right out of there. Oh, yeah. Gotta get something to try to grab onto that. It's smooth surface. Well, I missed that on camera. Good thing I had my screwdriver over top of it. Just gave it a little tiny tap. And yeah, as you can see, it's under about 2 inches of tension in there. So, like I said, good thing I had the screwdriver on it because it just blew right out of there. All right, so both servos are out now. Everything is done on the top there. Now my next thing is to get in here. This is called the sprag. The outer part stays in. You can see these little dimples. They are punched. So this is permanent. Unless there's a real big issue, it's not coming out. But there is this inner drive here, and it's held in by all these little roller bearings, these little pin bearings, and everyone has a spring. There's 12 bearings and 12 springs, and that stops this from turning backwards on itself for the governor. Governor is on this side. That sprag you see on this side. I'm not 100% sure of how the workings of it will go, but all I know is it's got to come out nice. Can't break a spring, can't lose a spring, can't lose anything. Well, that kind of happened quick. I pulled out one pin, then the center drive come out, and that was it. They are all out. 12 pins and 12 funky little springs. I hope there's a trick to putting those back together, because that's a bugger of a thing to get down in there. But I guess once it's cleaned, I'll tip this right up on its end, and at least they're falling down in. I don't have to worry about them dropping out. Might be a little easier to do it. Well, can't believe I got that whole transmission disassembled. And once I had everything out, I come over here and I started lining everything up just the way it came out, just your main components, the servos and the valve body and stuff like that. It's pretty easy to figure out where it goes. These only fit in one spot anyways. But just having the gear drives and the clutch hubs and everything and the planetaries all lined up, just the way they came out, kind of neat. How we started off from the torque converter into the pump, the first set of clutch packs, the first drive, that's the shaft that goes through the center, the secondary drive for the torque converter, and then it just kind of works its way along into the planetaries, the hubs, the clutch hubs, into the pump and the main drive shaft, your governor, which I found out that's what this thing is. This is a governor, and all the way out till finally we're at the end of the tail shaft. Now, off camera, I did end up taking the tail shaft, the pan, and the main case, and doing this off camera. I took it and I got it pressure washed. I pressure washed it, steamed it, dried it out really good, and it is looking fresh and new. The pan looks like it's brand new, but made sure everything is clean as possible. Got off what I can. There's this crud and stuff that's on there that's just like baked on that I cannot get off. I'll probably work on it with a little wire brush or whatever. Got to be careful what I do around this now. There's a lot of orifices in here. They will be all, of course, cleaned out with a brush. I have my my little tube brushes and stuff like that, and I'll be getting in there, making sure that all the holes, like down inside the servos, and also off to the side, so the drain holes and stuff like that, and reliefs, make sure that's all done as well too. But that is going to be the end of this video. I've got a lot of cleaning to do. Now, as I go through this, be washing everything down, scrubbing everything down, using some brake clean, clean it all up, get all this. It's like a black layer of sludge, not sludge, but just a layer of soot, it seems like, that's on it. Transmission fluid was dark. Didn't smell burnt at all. No smell at all. Smelled just like brand new transmission fluid, but just dark. I'm assuming from sitting, and then anything that was in it kind of settled out, especially on the top of components and stuff like that. So we're just going to clean it up. But in the next video, as I go through this and I get into my clutch packs and stuff and my planetaries, as I pull them apart, I'll definitely be videoing that as well. So as always, thanks for stopping by. If you're just first time, Like and subscribe. It's always appreciated. Love you all. Catch you again later.